Hello and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. My name is Joris and today I am here with a video that proposes some alternatives to invest into possible alternatives for SCHD for European investors. So as you know, SCHD is the holy grail, especially in the US, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. It's a very beloved ETF for dividend investors, and there is more than $70 billion invested into this ETF. But on the European continent, it's really hard to be able to buy it. So in some countries like Switzerland, you can buy it outright. So here there are no restrictions to buy it. So here in Switzerland, I'm one of the lucky ones, but I'm not investing towards non-UCITS ETFs. So for me, it's out of the question to invest directly into SCHD anyways. And in the rest of Europe, so in the European Union, it's in fact forbidden to invest in non-UCITS ETFs, but you can bypass that restriction by investing towards a call option. And when you do that, you can execute the contract on the expiry date. And when you do that, you can buy SCHD outright. But you have to keep in mind that that's not for all investors because you need to buy 100 shares in one go then. And that means that you need to have more or less $26,000 to your disposal in order to be able to buy 100 shares of SCHD. So for most Europeans, SCHD is a dream, or is it? Because you have some alternatives here on the European continent. For example, FUSD, it's the Fidelity US Quality Income UCITS ETF with a total expense ratio of 0.25%. You can also see the ISIN code here. You can buy one on the SIX stock exchange for 8.98 US dollar, and it pays out a dividend in US dollars as well. It has 110 holdings, so SCHD has 103 holdings, just to keep that in the back of your mind. And there is 1.02 billion euros invested into this ETF. It is a fully replicated type, so that's really good. That's what I like. I don't like synthetic replicated types, so this one is definitely okay. It's been around since the 27th of March of 2017, and in the past year it is up 11.17%. The past 3 years it is up 52.67%, and in the past 5 years it is up almost 100%. It pays out quarterly dividends in February, May, August, and November, and the dividend yield is 1.65%, so much lower than the more or less 4% dividend yield of SCHD. But yeah, you don't you will see it later in the video. You don't get to choose a lot between the dividend ETFs here in the European Union and on the European continent. So this one, it's growth oriented and it has a dividend yield of 1.65%. So here you can see the dividend distributions for FUSD, and it's pretty even because yeah, a lot of the companies that are in these ETFs, they pay out quarterly dividends as well. So that is why the distribution is quite evenly over the quarters, and that's what I like to see. Then you can also invest towards USDV, the Spider S&P US Dividend Aristocrats UCITS ETF, with a total expense ratio of 0.35. You can buy one share for 60.60 Swiss francs in the Swiss stock exchange. It pays out the dividend in US dollar. There are 149 companies in this ETF, so a lot more than in the SCHD one. There is 2.93 billion euros invested into this one. It's a fully replicated type as well, and it's been around almost the same time as SCHD, so since the 14th of October of 2011. And in the past year, it is up almost 12%. The past 3 years, it is up only 22.40%. And in the past 5 years, it is up 69.81%. So less performance the past 3 years and 5 years than FUSD. It also pays out quarterly dividends in the most common ones, so in March, June, September and December, and the dividend yield is 2.06%, so almost half, a bit over half of the dividend yield of SCHD. And once again, because of the quarterly distributions of the companies that it holds, the distributions are quite evenly distributed over the quarters as well. And then you have the EXX5. You can't buy it here in Switzerland. You have to go to the Xetra to buy this one from iShares, the Dow Jones US Select Dividend UCITS ETF. Total expense ratio of 0.31%. And it's a German-based ETF, this one. The other two were Irish-based ETFs. You can buy one share for 82.66 euros on the Xetra. And the dividend is being paid out normally in US dollar. That's what you can see on the iShares website. Maybe in Germany it's paid out in euros as well, but I don't know that for sure. If you know that, please let me know in the comment down below. And there are 100 holdings exactly in this ETF. There is only 328 million euros invested into this ETF, probably because it's only available on the Xetra stock exchanges, and it's a fully replicated type as well. The past year it is up 15.74%, the past 3 years 23.79%, and the past 5 years it is up almost 92%. And this one is been around since 2005, so it's the oldest one in this video, and it pays out quarterly dividends as well. And it's an interesting one because it pays out in January, April, July, and October, and you don't have a lot of ETFs that pay out in those months. The dividend yield is the highest one for the European ETFs with 2.60%. And here you can see the distribution, it's quite evenly as well. A bit higher in July, I don't know why that was, but normally it's more evenly distributed. But you can see, yeah, nice dividend yield for this EXX5 one from iShares. And if we can go to the comparison for SCHD, FUSD, USDV and EXX5. So SCHD, it invests towards the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 index, and every March they reconstitute the index, so they recalculate everything and they say, okay, more or less 20% of the stocks leave the index and new ones enter. Then you have the Fidelity US Quality Income Index for FUSD. USDV invests towards the S&P High Yield Dividend Aristocrats Index, and the EXX5 invests towards the Dow Jones US Select Dividend Index. So this one in fact reflects more or less the same as the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, but don't be mistaken, the Select really makes a difference because SCHD has a very strict selection procedure and EXX5 has another selection procedure. So it doesn't contain the same stocks at all. And you will see that a bit later in this video. Here you have the easing codes once again for those ETFs and the number of holdings. You can see it, SCHD 103 and FUSD EXX5 more or less have the same amount, but USDV has 149. The inception date, so USDV and SCHD were instituted more or less on the same day, so it was only 1 week later that SCHD came to life. Then USDV, FUSD is the youngest one and EXX5 is the oldest one. All are from the same replicated type, and the total expense ratio I told it before and I'm going to tell it again and again and again. Here in Europe, we pay too much expense ratio. So compared to the Americans, the US citizens, they are really, privileged that they have so many, excuse me, so many great ETFs with such a low total expense ratio compared to here in the European Union, and European continent. We really need to put pressure on the providers of the ETFs and say that they need to come down because look at the difference, 0.06% compared to 0.25 or 0.35 even for USDV. That's enormous. Then the fund size, SCHD, nothing can beat that. Can beat that. USDV, because it started around the same time. It's the most popular one here in the European continent as well. But EXX5 actually is really underperforming. It's the oldest one, and there is only 328 million euros invested into that one, so that's really not that great. Then the performances, so quarterly dividends for all four ETFs, dividend yield almost 4% for SCHD. Maybe I should have put the dividend CAGR here as well. So the dividend CAGR for SCHD is around 12%. FUSD has a negative dividend CAGR with around a negative evolution of 2% in the past 5-6 years. USDV has a dividend CAGR of 4% and EXX5 has a dividend CAGR of 3.6%. So it has the highest dividend yield, but probably when USDV keeps the dividend CAGR up, they will catch EXX5 in about 7 to 8 years. And then the 1 year performance, SCHD is actually underperforming all the European stocks, the European ETFs. So an EXX5 is performing really good in the past year. And in the past 3 years, FUSD is actually overperforming quite a lot. But if you look at the 5 year performance, there USDV is actually, yeah, it's in the wrong direction that it stands out. So it's performing about 20% less compared to the other three ETFs. So I like 5 year comparisons the most because that's the most reliable. The longer the period, the reliable the results are. And yeah, EXX5, it's really overperforming. And how that comes? Well, look at the top 10 holdings. You can see the resemblance with the highlighted companies. So Texas Instruments is in SCHD and it's also in USDV with 1.64% compared to 4.25%. Then you have Chevron, which is in SCHD and USDV as well, with 4.08% and 1.70%. And then you have Verizon, which is in SCHD and USDV, and also in EXX5. But all the rest of the companies that you see in this table, they are completely different for all four ETFs. So the top 10 holdings are actually completely different for all three of those European ETFs compared to SCHD. Okay, USDV, it holds three the same stocks as SCHD, but the percentages that it holds are completely different, mainly to do with the fact that it has 150, more or less 150 companies into its this ETF compared to 103 for SCHD. But it's unbelievable how different those ETFs actually are. Focusing on dividends and focusing on US stocks, and the top 10 is completely different. You can also see that in the sector allocation. So for SCHD, healthcare, consumer defensive, and energy are the three most important sectors for this ETF. And look at FUSD. Technology makes up 33.17%. So this one is really growth oriented. And then you have healthcare and financials. So those are more dividend related sectors. Technology sector is not that well known for its dividend dividend exuberance. And you can also see that, of course, in its dividend yield. That's the lowest one of the four that are here visible on this table. And then USDV, consumer defensive. That one is up there as well, just like for SCHD. But then you have industrials making up 20.45%, so more than almost double of the percentage for SCHD. And then you have utilities. In SCHD, that one makes up only 0.04%, but in USDV, it makes up 14.31%. And for EXX5, that one makes even up 25.14%. That is following close behind the financial sector. So financials and utilities there together already account for more than 50% of the EXX5 ETF. And then the third one for EXX5 is the consumer defensive sector. So here again, you can see that those four ETFs are completely different. So the three ETFs that you can buy here as Europeans, as possible alternatives for SCHD, are actually completely different than SCHD. And that's the main conclusion. SCHD is unique, and that one invests more towards traditional dividend stalwarts, and it has a dividend CAGR of 12%. I hardly believe that they have a dividend CAGR of 12% in the past 5 years. So yeah, it's when you look at it, the top 20%, the top 20 companies of SCHG make up 75% or around that percentage of SCHD, and they have a dividend CAGR of 9%, which means that the rest of SCHD, which makes up 25% of SCHG, has a dividend CAGR that is around 20%, to have a dividend CAGR of 12% in total for the ETF. So it's unbelievable what SCHD is performing in this way. And the UCITS ETF are good dividend ETFs, but they are completely different and they don't come any way near the dividend CAGR of SCHD. And they also have a lower dividend yield than SCHD. So you have FUSD, USDV, and EXX5. They are interesting alternatives, and sadly enough, they don't have the same focus as SCHD. So you have FUSD that offers quality growth with exposure to technology sector, with the technology sector making up more than 33% of the ETF, but it has a lower dividend yield, and the dividend CAGR is actually slightly declining. So it has a dividend CAGR of around -2%. USDV, it prioritizes dividend growth consistency, so not dividend growth on as such, but dividend growth consistency. And in that way, it resembles more SCHD than the other two that I'm presenting in this video. But it has a moderate dividend yield, so 2.06%. The dividend CAGR is the highest of the three, so with 4% dividend CAGR, and the 5-year performance is not okay. So that one is underperforming with more than 20% the other three ETFs that are in this video. EXX5 is more value oriented. It has large exposure to utilities and financials, so they were really well valued in the past 5, 6, even 10 years. So in that way, EXX5 offers a lot of value for value investors as well. and it has the highest dividend yield with 2.60, and it has a dividend CAGR of 3.6%, and the UCITS and the dividend yield, it's still 1.3 or 1.4% lower than for SCHD. So in that way, yeah, SCHD is just enormous what they are doing there in the US, and it's really sad that Schwab isn't offering this ETF here in the European continent, because I think they would have a lot of success. Certainly when they can also use the same ticker, SCHD, in the whole European continent, that would be, yeah, a home run hit when they would do that. But sadly enough, they aren't considering it even, I think. So we will have to wait. And you even have some other possibilities. You can have QDIV or DGRW and USDVD. And DGRW is very interesting because it's dividend growth oriented, just like SCHD, but it contains 300 companies. So in that way, it's way more diversified than SCHD, but this means that it's less focused than SCHD, and this is also reflected in the results of DGRW. They are great. DGRW has actually the best performance of all the dividend quality ETFs here on the European continent, but I didn't include it in this video because it has 300 companies compared to 100 of SCHD. It was a bit of a stretch, and sadly enough, QDIV and USDVD only give 2 dividends per year, and as you know, I prefer quarterly dividends or even monthly dividends being paid out by ETFs, so I left those out as well. But QDIV is definitely one you should look at as well, and if you have done that, please let me know in the comments down below which of the ETFs, UCITS ETFs that I mentioned here in my video, would you prefer, and if you already invest in one of them, please let me know that as well, and what your success is with it, if you are in the plus, if you are in the minus, and if you are so open as me, how much dividend you get paid every year by your dividend ETF. And with that being said, thank you for watching to this one. Please hit that subscribe button, it helps out my channel enormously. It lets me know as well if you like this kind of content, and if you hit that like button, that helps with the YouTube algorithm as well. So if you do that, thank you in advance. And with that being said, thank you for watching to this one, and see you in the next one on my YouTube channel. Bye!